Did Michelangelo hide messages in his frescoes? Messages that, if discovered, could shake the church to its core and even put Michelangelo's life at risk.
He got in a lot of trouble. They wanted to arrest him. More than a few of them wanted to kill him.
A new book claims to have decoded one of Michelangelo's most explosive messages, a protest against the corruption of the papacy hidden in his painting of the prophet Jeremiah. It would be a fitting analogy. Jeremiah was the prophet who foretold God's wrath.
Jeremiah was the prophet of doom. He prophesied destruction of the temple because the Jewish people were corrupt at the time. The spiritual leaders were not doing what they were supposed to be doing.
The authors say that's just how Michelangelo felt about the papacy. In their interpretation, the direction of Jeremiah's gaze says it all.
Jeremiah's looking right down to the papal throne.
It's not against Christianity, it's against the corruption of the papacy of his day.
Is there a suggestion that Michelangelo is using Jeremiah here to imply that the church itself may be destroyed as a result of corruption?
Certainly, by way of warning, certainly.
By way of warning?
Yes.
Did corruption within the church push him to such extremes? Did bad blood remain from the Easter assassination attempt on his mentor? Scholars are doubtful.
I think he was terrifically apolitical. He would have liked all the conflict to go away, and it served to disrupt his life constantly. There are a number of letters that he writes to his family saying, just don't talk about politics, stay out, do not get tainted.
Elizabeth Lev, a professor of art history and a Michelangelo expert, thinks that, like all artists, Michelangelo was always looking for his next job.
He understood that there were bigger things at stake than a squabble here or a fight there. Michelangelo was a professional. He had been working as a sculptor, as an artist, since he was 13 years old. And he understood that was his calling, that was his career.
In Florence, from a very early age, Michelangelo was trained as a painter and a sculptor. But as I learned in the Uffizi Gallery, Michelangelo quickly gave up his paintbrush for a hammer and chisel.
Why do you think he didn't like painting?
It wasn't part of his art. It wasn't part of his soul.
What he loved was marble, turning stone into art, and he was willing to do anything to improve his craft.
When he was 17, he wanted to learn how the body was made inside. And he was saying, how can I represent a perfect human body if I don't know how it's working inside?
In his learning stages as an artist, he would perform dissections in order to see how human muscles behaved, both actively and when relaxed.
Was that human brain, pointed out by the authors, inspired by Michelangelo's anatomy lessons? Look at the naked bodies of Adam and Eve, almost three-dimensional. But the authors say, look past the bodies to see another hidden meaning.
Now, most of us understand that when Adam and Eve fell, they fell by eating an apple. But what we have here is not an apple tree, but a fig tree.
Michelangelo does not follow the tradition that it was an apple. This was the understanding that everyone had, except for Jewish tradition. He has them eating figs from a fig tree.
Why figs and not apples? What do Michelangelo experts think?
The Bible itself does not really speak of an apple. It speaks of fruit. I couldn't tell you why he featured the fig. The fig is not frequently used.
Blech and Doliner suggest Michelangelo was using an ancient Jewish interpretation of this biblical story. In this interpretation, God only ever presents a problem along with a solution. The Bible says Adam and Eve covered their nudity with fig leaves. Therefore, it must have been a fig that caused the problem in the first place.
That is a very plausible suggestion. But if there's no documentary proof, you can say this is an attractive hypothesis, but we can't go further.
There's another aspect of this painting that you draw attention to, and it's what might be described as the bodily form of Adam as he's reaching for the fruit.
That was very delicately put.
Tell me a little bit about that and why that's significant.
Well, he wanted to show that they were totally innocent and had absolutely no sexual thoughts at all. And you can see when you look at the painting that his sexual organs are very close to Eve's face.
Absolutely stunning, the most amazing detail in the world. I think it's absolutely intentional, and this is where Michelangelo is always pushing the boundaries of, I think, sexuality.
And remember, Michelangelo was raised in Florence, a city that celebrated the human form. At the height of the Renaissance, it was where Michelangelo learned to capture the beauty of the human body.
He's looking to define his own identity within this world that's moving around him. What he has to do is to somehow translate the beauty of the ideas, the feelings that course through him into sculpture.
When he was just 26 years old, Michelangelo was about to make his mark.
So this is the kind of workshop where Michelangelo would have been based.
He could have used something like this to drive his chisel into the marble.
Michelangelo turned marble into the David. Word of the David quickly spread to the Vatican and to the Pope.
In 1504, when the magnificent David was unveiled to the public, it was clear that Florence now possessed perhaps the greatest living sculptor. And it wasn't long before Michelangelo would receive his next and his greatest commission. And indeed, these carvings here reveal the characters that he was already working on for the tomb of Pope Julius II.
It was to be a gigantic tomb. The Pope wanted it to sit in the centre of St. Peter's Cathedral. It was the ambitious project Michelangelo had been waiting for his entire life. But just as he began work, the Pope changed his mind. Michelangelo must stop sculpting and paint instead. Did a furious Michelangelo paint insults onto the Pope's ceiling?
There's no doubt about it. This beautiful little angel is giving the finger to Pope Julius.